Now.
It's December 23rd. We're in Boone, North Carolina.
2019.
2019, that's right. Okay. And we're in Boone, North Carolina at the Sam Adams home. And Sam and Tom and I, with the help of Mark Adams, my oldest son, photographer, film director, producer, etc., are going to share a few minutes of some stories about our youth, making fun of ourselves, mom and dad, each other, whatever. We made a few notes, but we're not limited to those, and I'm sure our brilliant minds will come up with some we didn't write down earlier in the day. We thought we'd kind of start with some funny ones about mom and dad to kind of kick us off, and one of the top ones is Dad and his car wash experience. And so, Sam, our best storyteller, is going to start with that.
Okay, well, excuse me. Dad owned a little Subaru station wagon, and he did not realize it had a moonroof.
It was new.
Yeah.
And my son Art
had
Art had taken us for a ride in it, and then Art drove it. But while Dad was in the car, Art was still driving it, but he was driving Dad's new car. Right. Art was. Mm.
And so Dad did not realize that they had started putting moonroofs in the top of cars. It didn't make sense to him. But Art had opened it, and so he's taking it back. Now Dad's looking at it and he thinks, I need to take my little Subaru and give it a wash. So he goes to the car wash and goes in the automatic car wash. And he's sitting there, and so here comes the soap, and all of a sudden he's covered in soap. And he has it wouldn't even dawn on him to look up. So he thought maybe there was one of the windows was down. So he's over here doing all the windows. He's pretty confident he's got it all taken care of. So now he's sitting here again, and the soap comes by again and just soaps him really good again. So now he's in a panic. He's still not going to look up because they don't make cars with holes in the roof. So now he's in a panic because the rinse is coming. And then
he gets warm water.
Yeah.
Then he gets warm water.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's one of these machines where you didn't go through it; it went around you.
Yeah, it went around you.
And so and then all of a sudden he gets warm water.
Yeah, he gets warm water, and so he
keeps putting his buttons, thinking he's rolling up the windows. and when it stops because it's running around, when it stops coming in on him, he thinks he's got the window rolled up. So then he relaxes and he's sitting there again.
Yeah, and so he's thinking, should I pull out? Because something's wrong. Should I just go ahead and leave the car wash? Will that mess it up, or am I just going to sit here? So he just sat there and just got soaked.
After warm water came cold water.
Yeah.
So he got 4 different times and never got the windows rolled up.
So that was our father, who was a brilliant man, but didn't know a lot about cars. Didn't know anything about moonroofs.
He after that got around town, I thought, if that had happened to me, I don't know that I would have told that. And I went to Dad and I said, Dad, I don't know what I'd have told that. He looked at me with this little grin and he goes, too good not to tell.
Too funny not to tell. That's right. Hey, I'll tell the story about the bathtub. Our dad never showered, or I say never, very rarely showered. He always liked to take a bath in a bathtub, and that was his form of relaxation. He would sit there and he would soak in the bathtub for probably 15 or 20 minutes. Well, so one afternoon he's in the bathtub, and he gets a long distance call. Now, when we were kids, a long distance call was a big deal. And so we go running in, Dad, you've got a long distance call. So he gets out of the tub, and we lived in a ranch house. The only phone we had was in a cutout in the wall between the hallway and the den. We had a side porch, and you could see in the den, and you could see the hallway and stuff. And so Dad comes out, and he's got a towel wrapped around him. Well, he talks for a few minutes, and the towel turns loose. And he's standing there flipping the towel around. So I went out the back door, I went out the basement door, came around to the side porch and rang the doorbell. And it was comical to see what was going on. And we laughed about that a lot of times. He wasn't too funny at the moment, but afterwards it was really funny.
I'll tell one or two about Mom. Mom, to say that Mom was frugal or tight was a gross understatement. Mark and virtually everybody that had exposure to her. In fact, I remember one time we're leaving the Japanese restaurant, and Mom, I don't ever remember being with a group of family members that if there was anything left at the table, Mom would, in the most polite way, would just say, "Sam, are you going to finish that?" Or "Mark, are you full? Would you mind?" You know. And so we had. I remember one disaster late in her life where we were walking out of Makoto's Japanese restaurant, and she always had 3 extra servings of shrimp sauce. So she had about a half a gallon of shrimp sauce in a box, and she spilled it all over herself. But she was frugal at best, and so she used to go to Bojangles later in her life, or wherever it was, and she'd get extra. She'd get a biscuit and she'd get extra jellies, and she'd bring the jellies home, so she would never have to buy jelly. She'd just get extra jellies from Bojangles or wherever she was getting a breakfast biscuit. So about 15 years ago, we'd go to Pinehurst every year, and somebody had the idea. I wish I'd have had it, but we're having a really nice Thanksgiving dinner at Pinehurst Country Club, big country club, manor club, whatever it is. And so somebody had the idea, and it was larger. We were 20 of us there with kids, grandkids, and all that. And so the plan was each of us would grab as many of the little one-time containers, nice upscale containers of
They were
jellies.
little glass
Yeah,
things.
little glass,
They were
yeah,
little.
yeah.
They were very
Jelly
nice.
jars,
I still
yeah.
got a couple at mine.
Anyway, and so without telling them, that's what we did. So we left with about 20 or 30 of them. And Christmas was a really big deal to Mom. She had a little plastic tree that literally was, well, I mean, she'd started when we were young, and she tried to decorate it and all that, but it was the ugliest little old plastic tree you can imagine. But that's one of the regulars about it. But we had things under the tree, and so it was a really big deal that Dad would sit under the tree and he would look at and get the name off the gift and pass it out.
Or throw it out.
Or throw it out.
That's
throw
fast.
Yeah, throw it out. So anyway, the point was, everybody had wrapped up the 20 little jellies individually. And it'd be like, you know, this one was Emily, and this one from Sam, and this is from Austin, and all that kind of stuff. So Mom's sitting over there, so Dad starts, somewhere in the group, just picks up a little jelly and says, "From Daisy, it's from Emily." So, you know, Daisy, it's from Jackie. And so Mom's there, she's getting like 4 or 5 of them, doesn't know what's going on. And Dad's in on it, and we go through about 20 of those little jelly jars, and they're all sitting over there. Mom had this quizzical look on her face. What the hell's going on? You know?
Yeah.
And finally says, "Mom, open your gift." And so she had this embarrassed, blush face. She knew what was going on when she opened one.
You know, when she died, she still had some of those jelly jars.
Yeah.
When we cleaned out her house.
Yeah.
I said that. Being cute, but knowing that we threw some of them away.
Well, one thing too, and she used to, all the food that she would take, she'd be like this. She would be sitting there and she'd have food on her plate, and she would get a napkin and she would look around to see if anybody was watching her, and then when she thought nobody was watching her, she'd go like that and pull it down in the napkin and
Put the napkin
stick it
in
in
the
her
purse.
purse. And then she'd take it home and put it in the freezer. When she passed away, in that freezer, there were life forms that have never been identified. Stuff that had been in there for, I mean, like 25 years. I mean,
Literally.
literally. I mean, honest to goodness, 25 years. Unbelievable.
I'd bring her those little Frosties from Wendy's, which she liked very much.
Yeah.
But she never would finish it. She'd eat half of it, she'd put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many of those.
Oh,
there were probably dozens of
Dozens.
half. But she wouldn't finish it. She wanted to save some of that Frosty out for who, I don't know, or for what.
Well, and after she wasn't able to live at home and she was living in Deerfield Ridge and stuff, if you went to visit her, and sometimes she'd know you, most of the time she would know you, but if you took Kentucky Fried Chicken she was glad to see you. She loved Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Well, on that one, I gotta tell the story. Tom and I were going one time, and their mind wasn't as good in those days, and so there was a little back room you could eat privately, and so we go back in this little small back room, and we've got Kentucky Fried Chicken for her and Tom and me, and we're seated as we are here. I'm seated here. She would be seated like where Mark is, and Tom's to my right, and so she's eating away, and she always ate pretty darn well. And she's eating her Kentucky Fried Chicken, and she looks up at me and she says, "Austin, is that your boy sitting beside you?"
Yeah.
Yeah, she got. But those times, I think that once they get in those places like that, they supply plenty of drugs.
Yeah, and they get
They don't have too much energy.
Yeah, and sometimes you'd walk in and she would introduce herself to you. She's very proper. She'd go, "I'm Daisy Adams." I'd go, "I'm Sam Adams." She'd go, "I have a son, Sam. Is that you?" Yeah. I go, "Yeah, me, Mom."
We can tell a lot of stories. This is the last one I'll do about that one because we got some great golf stories to tell. But near the end, one of the stories she had for several days said, "You know, there's a guy came in here tonight and he picked me up and threw me against the wall."
Yeah.
And I said, "Mom, I don't think so." And she got so mad, her face got red. She said, "You calling me a liar?" I said, "Right, he threw me against that wall over there."
Yeah.
I came in there. Austin and I were in there one day, and Mom had been in the car with Austin. Austin had left a beer can in between the seats.
Which is against the law, by the way.
Austin was not a big drinker. He wasn't having a beer to get his eyes open. And so anyway, she comes over to me and she goes, "I think Austin drinks alcohol."
Yeah.
That was on her mind. "I think Austin drinks alcohol."
Well, and so the next, like 2 or 3 times I was there, she was in a room where she could see out, and there was a red light at some building relatively nearby. I mean, it was a couple hundred yards away or something, but it was a pretty bright red light. And so she said, I was getting ready to leave, and everything seemed to be good. And she looked at me very serious and said, "Austin, I know where you're going." I said, "Well, you know," I said, "You're going over there, see those lights? You're going over there to drink alcohol." I said, "I'm really not, Mom." We had this long conversation. I said, "I only have like a beer or 2 a week. That's too many. That's too many."
Yeah.
Her and Dad both thought that.
Do you want to transition a little to a golf story?
Well, I thought we might tell the one about Tom and I decided we weren't going to be farmers, or we should still be on family.
Yeah. Good, go ahead.
You want to tell that? You want me to?
Well, I'll start it. Her oldest brother was Collis Austin, and he was a very, very rough farmer. I mean, he was tough. But anyway, they had this, to plant cabbage, it had to be wet, but so that they could just put this little old rhododendron thing stick in the ground. And it was a process. One person would lay them out, and our grandfather, I guess, laid it out.
Yeah.
And then somebody come put the hole in the ground, and somebody else would come put the cabbage in it and tap it down. And it was you do it in rows, and it was a process.
And you did it on your knees.
You did it on your knees. It had to be wet, and I guess it had to be January. Because I guess it had to be
It's
really
cold.
probably
It's probably March.
March. And so anyway, I'll let Sam take it from here. But that Mom would rent us not only for this process, but she felt very comfortable renting us to Uncle. Now she rent Sam and I to Uncle Collis for $1 a day.
$1 a day.
And then she took the $1.
Yeah. But so we've been up on Rich Mountain planting cabbage for hours. And it is cold, it's muddy, we're covered in mud, and so we're riding back home in the back of Uncle Collis's pickup. There's no cover on it, no tarp, no nothing. We're frozen. And I look over at Tom, and Tom's teeth are chattering. And he's got like this, and I said, "Tom, I don't think I'm going to be a farmer. Tom said, hell no, me either.
Yeah, that broke us apart.
That's how we became golf professionals.
And we mentioned earlier, Uncle Collis smoked Lucky Strikes or Camels,
Yeah,
one of those
Camels,
short,
yeah.
non-filtered things. And his finger where he smoked was stained very yellow.
Oh,
And for an inch or two, almost
Yeah.
these two, from the third digit down, almost to the top,
Yeah.
was just yellow. I mean, bright yellow. It was just nicotine.
And and once he started laughing, he couldn't laugh because I guess he tried to get air or something. But he'd go, if you got him tickled, he'd go into a coughing fit.
yeah.
He'd just cough and cough. Anyway, I smoked. That didn't stop me.
Well, what else do you have that we knew we need to talk about?
Well, before we go on to get into golf, Tom's got a great story about the window when we lived up on the hill. Tell him about the plate glass
Yeah,
window.
we'd moved from what we call down below the road up on the hill, and Dad rented out the house we lived in down below, and we had a nice flat up front yard, and we'd hit golf balls back down to our old across the road and our old
And that, across the
field.
road is now 321.
Yeah.
4-lane highway. Okay.
And anyway, we'd hit balls down there, and I wasn't the only one. Sam hit them, Austin hit them, other people hit them from up there, and we'd hit them down there in the field or whatever. Well, I was home one Saturday, I think it was. But anyway, I was home one day, and so I'm standing there, and I hit this ball, and it's going toward our old house. And so I'm watching it, and all of a sudden I'm not feeling real good about it. And I think I fell on the ground as if that helped. and I watch it, and all of a sudden we had picture glass windows, probably 8 by 8.
Yeah, plate glass
like that,
windows.
yeah. Anyway, I saw that window just shake like that. And all of a sudden, one corner of it came dark. And so I knew I broke the window. So I'm trying to figure out how to get out of this. So then they had cabs in Boone, and you could get a cab for nothing or whatever, and I had 50 cents, I guess it was. Anyway, I called the cab and had the cab take me to Boone. And so I stayed in Boone all afternoon and waited, didn't come home till late. And
Establishing an alibi.
and so I come home and it was working perfect. Dad had Sam, and he
a
was
wonderful
all
suspect.
him. I mean, and Sam's going, I don't remember hitting that window, and I don't think I did that. And after all this, spending my money on a cab and setting this all up, I dadgum, I didn't confess. But it worked. It worked.
Mom had lots of lovable idiosyncrasies. This is a little about golf, but it's one of my favorites. I'm gonna have Sam tell him about. One time when you're playing at Country Club North Carolina in a tournament,
Yeah. I'm playing in a tournament at the Country Club North Carolina.
This a tournament being when he's playing the tour.
Yeah, on the
This
tour.
is- yeah.
On the tour, and so there's gallery around there, not a lot, but some. And the 15th hole at Country Club North Carolina is a long par 3 surrounded with water in front and water to the side, and even on both sides. And so Mom is standing there in the gallery with Bob Sneed, who married her niece.
Yeah.
And I'm getting ready to hit, and Mom looks over at Bob and said, I hope he's using an old ball. When you played golf the way I did, you didn't have any old balls. You lost them.
Why don't we talk a little about playing with Ralph and Patsy, and then we'll go to the golf thing. We probably hadn't told any of the family much about this, but Dad very, very early in our life had bought 25 acres, and Ralph, his brother-in-law, married Mom's sister Ella, and Ralph owned 25 acres. So essentially everything from Green's Motor Court to Holiday Inn was owned by one of the two families on both sides of the road. And so lots of stories about that. But we just lived on a farm, and we were the only two families. But they would come over and play. They were up on the hill a little more, so they came over and played with us. And so we came over and make up little games. We had basketball goal and all that. But
Dad We did things first class. Now we've got in this field,
Yeah.
we have cows and horses, and Dad taught some guy that had a bulldozer, came in and bulldozed one run,
Yeah.
and that was the flattened basketball court, put up a basketball
Yeah, that's right.
goal at the end of it.
Yeah.
Well, the horses and cows didn't know. They didn't understand.
No, not to use that area.
That's our basketball court.
No, that's
So,
right.
so anyway, it got limited use by us after a while.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's a great one. Well, Mom and Dad were also a little late in life talking to us about the birds and the bees, and so we'd play basketball. We had 5 of us, and so we'd have 2 and 3, and we'd mix up teams and all. But just like you do, you play shirts and skins, right?
Yeah.
Well, we can't figure out Patsy whether she was 12 or 13 years old before she started wearing shirts.
Yeah, she started
If she's on skin, she took off her shirt. And I mean, that's just such a. Yeah.
Well,
and she also was the center for both football. So there'd be two guys, and Patsy'd be the center for
Yeah,
both.
that's true. Well, and now 321 was a 2-lane road, and there was not a lot. It was the main road between Boone and Blowing Rock.
But there wasn't any traffic.
Wasn't a lot of traffic, and so it was no big. But we could not. I mean, we're old. I mean, we're mature enough that we could cross the road. Mom would not allow us to cross the road. We had to crawl through the culvert that went under the road
Yeah.
that had glass and rocks and
You
snakes.
can everything in it. The cover is metal. It's not smooth. It's metal.
Yeah.
Like that. And
No, that's
that
true.
was a lot of pain to go visit
It was.
visit
That's
the
true.
If
Shears.
we were going over to visit the Bashirs, we had to crawl through the culvert.
That's a true story.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it would take us 2.5 seconds to run across the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd take 3 minutes to crawl through that culvert. Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
But we did it.
one of the stories, we had a little front yard, and we decided somewhere we'd heard about hockey or seen on TV or something. So we play hockey. Well, we didn't have any hockey sticks or anything, so we did have golf clubs. We had golf balls. And so we decided Ralph, our cousin Ralph, was going to be the goalie. And so was it you or Tom?
Tom.
I
Well,
killed him.
you tell the story.
Anyway, he's the goalie there, and I've got my hockey rod,
Golf club.
which is a golf club, and the golf ball down there, and he's doing the goal. Anyway, I take a swing at the golf ball, and I hit him right above the eye. And I mean,
Hard.
and I cut him good. Well, now we're running around trying to figure out what to do. So we get a towel and wrap his head up in the towel. Well, the next thing we decide to do is try to hide him. So somebody knows.
So we won't get in trouble.
We're not getting in trouble. And he's agreeing to this stuff. He goes over and sits on the side porch, you remember?
Yeah, yeah.
And we had this towel over him finally, I guess. And he had to go get stitches, man. I had got him.
Oh
good.
no! Years later, you can see it. He had multiple stitches. You probably see it today.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom just got him a 2-iron just right across the head.
We tried to hide him. Even the wise Adams figured out that wasn't going to work.
Well, talking about wise though, it was hard to hide my intellect. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I had a pet turtle I'd had for like 3 or 4 months. And we'd found him somewhere. Mom had stopped in the middle of the road and get turtled out of the road, so it could probably be one of those. But I had a pet turtle, and I was playing with him in the side there. And so Mom said, "You got to eat lunch." And I said, "No, I want to play with my turtle." And she said, "No, so you got to come eat lunch." And so I said, "Okay." Given my intellect and maturity at the time, I thought, okay, well, what I'm going to do for my pet turtle is I'm just going to draw a ring and just have him stay in the ring. Well, the drawing of the ring was just dirt, and I drew a little circle with like a pen or something, and told my turtle to stay in that circle.
Turtle
How'd
that
did not speak English.
Yeah, apparently my southern drawl was a little
Too big.
I came back 30 minutes later, and that turtle's gone forever.
We had gotten BB guns, or I guess they had gotten BB guns. But anyway, they convinced their intelligent youngest brother he had a billfold. Put a billfold in his back pocket, and they were
To
going to
stand
shoot.
a pretty good far
They
away.
were going to shoot and hit the billfold. In that back pocket. I went for this. That's all right. At any age. Anyway, so I bend over there and I'm there and they start missing. But, so my answer to them missing was I took off running the house. I was going to tell Mama
Yeah.
that they was killing me. Their answer was they opened up on me. They start shooting me in the back until I fall on the ground and they come and sit on me. I had a lot of faith in their shooting.
I tell you what,
Compassion.
loyalty's loyalty.
Hey, compassion runs deep in this family.
They shot me down.
We were going to tell this.
But I tell you what, though, we did things with BB guns back then.
Oh,
And not our little family. I don't know how there wasn't some real damage
Oh,
from
I know.
it. But I mean, now they wear all this protective gear for it and stuff. But I don't know anybody got hurt with a BB.
No.
But I mean,
We
we'd
did.
shoot anything.
Well, the most scared I have ever, well, not I've ever been, but we had a distant relative by the name of Sonny Tugman who came to visit Austin. He had a bow and arrow.
Hmm.
And he took that bow and arrow and he'd shoot it straight up. And that scared me so bad. I couldn't, I don't remember
Really?
whatever happened. Yeah, do you remember that at all?
Would we find the arrow? Would it come
He'd
down?
come down and we'd find him, yeah, but he'd go like this, just scare the living snot out of me.
Yeah, that's good reason, yeah.
But we were going to tell the story about Channel 5 was the NBC station that you could,
Oh, I
get
got to
in.
tell changing the. Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
yeah. Channel 5, it was the NBC station that you could get when we were kids. And we had to adjust the antenna on the roof, but anyway, so they were doing a promotion around Christmas time. I think they had, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was like Christmas ornaments. They would have so many, and they put it on the screen for like 2 seconds, and then you were supposed